Why aging is a blessing, not a burden. In a world constantly chasing after success, wealth, and youth, have you ever stopped to wonder if there's something more to life? What if the true answers to our deepest questions, the key to peace, and the path to wisdom have been within our reach all along? Welcome to Buddhism in Life, where we dive deep into the ancient teachings of Buddhism, unraveling the profound truths that can guide us in this modern world. This video is packed with life-changing insights, practical advice, timeless wisdom, and stories that will transform the way you see aging, life, and everything around us. The fear of aging is something we all have thought about. Do you know? In a world constantly obsessed with youth, it's often viewed as something to be feared, something to be fought against. We're bombarded daily by messages that insist we must preserve our youth, that we must fight the inevitable signs of aging with anti-aging creams, surgeries, and supplements. But in reality, this relentless pursuit of youth comes at a cost that goes beyond our vanity and our wallets. It costs us the very essence of what it means to live fully and authentically. In Buddhist philosophy, aging is not something to resist, but something to embrace. It is part of the natural cycle of life, a cycle that mirrors the very teachings of impermanence, the cornerstone of Buddhist wisdom. The Buddhist teachings remind us that nothing in this world is permanent. Life, just like everything else, is in a constant state of flux. And that's not something to fear. It's something to accept with gratitude and reverence. In a society that idolizes youth, we are often taught to view aging as a decline, a fading of beauty, strength, and vitality. This fear can lead to an endless cycle of striving to maintain appearances, to stay young at any cost. But in truth, this approach keeps us trapped in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction. We are so focused on holding on to the fleeting moments of youth that we fail to appreciate the deeper, more meaningful aspects of growing older. In the Buddha's time, aging was not seen as a sign of weakness or failure. It was, in fact, revered. The elders were the keepers of wisdom, the ones who had lived through countless seasons of life and emerged with clarity, compassion, and understanding. The Buddha himself, having spent his youth in search of enlightenment, came to realize that wisdom and enlightenment are often born from the challenges of life, including aging. A story from the Buddha's life comes to mind that beautifully encapsulates this truth. It said that the Buddha, upon seeing an elderly man, once remarked, "In the face of aging, sickness, and death, we are all bound to suffer. But it is through our response to these inevitable truths that we find freedom." These words speak to the heart of Buddhist teachings, that suffering is part of life, but our perception of suffering can be transformed. Aging, sickness, and death are not just burdens to bear. They are opportunities to practice acceptance, compassion, and mindfulness. In the Zen tradition, there's a beautiful story about an old monk who had spent most of his life in quiet contemplation. One day, a young novice approached him and asked, "Master, why do you spend so much time in stillness? Shouldn't you be teaching us?" The old monk smiled and replied, "I am teaching. In my stillness, I show you the way to peace." This simple yet profound interaction illustrates the power of aging not as a loss of vitality, but as a deepening of wisdom and presence. As we age, we become more capable of living with intentionality and clarity. The noise of the world, the distractions of youth, begin to fade away, leaving space for the wisdom that arises from within. The truth is, aging doesn't diminish us. It refines us. It strips away the unnecessary layers of our ego, leaving us with a more authentic version of ourselves. This process of unbecoming, as some may call it, is not something to fear. It's something to embrace. We are shedding the stories we once told ourselves, the masks we once wore, and in doing so, we uncover a deeper sense of peace and understanding. The Buddhist teachings on impermanence, anicca, remind us that all things, including ourselves, are constantly changing. As we age, we are not diminishing, but evolving. We are shedding old skins, much like the snake that sheds its skin to make way for new growth. In the same way, our aging is a process of transformation, a transformation that can lead us to greater wisdom, greater compassion, and a deeper connection to the present moment. One of the most powerful lessons that aging offers is the opportunity to let go of comparison. When we're young, we are often caught in a race, comparing ourselves to others, trying to live up to society's standards, measuring our worth by external achievements. But as we age, we begin to realize that true contentment doesn't come from external validation. It comes from within. It comes from the quiet assurance that we are enough, just as we are. In the Buddhist tradition, there is a practice known as mindful aging. This is the practice of being present with the aging process, not resisting it, but embracing it fully. It's about finding joy in the small moments, the simple acts of daily life, and recognizing that every wrinkle, every gray hair is a testament to a life well lived. It's about honoring the body and mind as they grow and change, rather than trying to freeze them in time. The story of an elderly monk in a remote temple speaks to this practice. He had long since given up teaching and now spent his days sweeping the temple grounds. His movements were slow, deliberate, each sweep of the broom bringing a sense of peace to the temple. A young monk once asked him why he spent so much time sweeping. "Why don't you teach us?" the novice inquired. The old monk simply replied, "I am teaching. Every sweep is a lesson in mindfulness. Every action is an opportunity to practice presence." This simple act of sweeping became a profound lesson in aging with grace, a reminder that the most important teachings often come not from words, but from actions. Aging is not the enemy, it is the teacher. It offers us the gift of perspective, of understanding, of clarity, and it invites us to cultivate qualities like patience, kindness, and acceptance, which are the true hallmarks of a life well lived. So, let us not fear aging. Let us embrace it as a blessing, an opportunity to grow into the truest versions of ourselves. And let us remember, as the Buddha taught, that the goal of life is not to fight the inevitable, but to learn from it, to evolve with it, and to become wiser, more compassionate beings as a result. In Buddhist teachings, wisdom is often described not as a sudden moment of realization, but as a gradual unfolding, something that matures and deepens with time and experience. The wisdom of aging in particular is something that reveals itself not just through the accumulation of years, but through the shedding of illusions and the acceptance of impermanence. This process isn't about losing anything, it's about gaining clarity, depth, and perspective. Let me share a story that beautifully illustrates this principle. There was a woman named Margaret who dedicated the first decades of her life to caring for others. She spent her days raising children, cooking meals, tending to the house, always putting the needs of others before her own. But when she retired at 65, her life took a quiet turn. The house, once filled with the constant rhythm of daily routines, fell silent. And in that stillness, Margaret found a new calling, that is painting. At first, it was just a few tentative strokes on canvas. She didn't know what would come of it, but something deep inside her pulled her toward this new expression. Over time, her work grew vibrant, full of emotion, rich with color, and layered with meaning. By the time she was 70, she was invited to showcase her work at a local gallery. When a visitor asked her why she hadn't started painting earlier, she smiled softly and said, "It took me 65 years to truly see the world clearly." This is a beautiful example of what the Buddha might call the wisdom of the heart. Margaret's art wasn't just a product of time. It was a product of lived experience, of finding stillness in her later years, and of allowing herself the space to look inward. In youth, we are often driven by external forces, societal expectations, the rush of career, the pressures of family life. We chase accomplishments, gather possessions, and measure our success by outward markers. But as we age, we begin to see that these things are fleeting, that the hustle of the world can often obscure the deeper truths about who we are and what really matters. Buddhism teaches that true wisdom is not a mere intellectual understanding. It is the embodiment of insight through living. It's not about knowing everything. It's about letting go of what we thought we knew and allowing ourselves to be present in the unfolding of each moment. In many ways, this mirrors the aging process. We shed the illusion of control and perfection. We stop trying to fit into molds created by others and begin to embrace the authenticity of who we are. There is a beautiful story from Buddhist tradition that speaks to the process of gaining wisdom with age. It is said that in the Buddha's time, there was an elderly monk known for his deep wisdom. He had lived through many trials and teachings, but as he grew older, he withdrew from the public eye. Instead of giving lectures or leading large gatherings, he spent his days tending to a small garden in the monastery. When a young novice asked him, "Master, why do you spend your time alone in the garden? Shouldn't you be teaching us?" The old monk smiled and replied, "I am teaching. With every weed I pull, I let go of my attachment. With every flower I water, I cultivate compassion." This simple yet profound story illustrates the truth that aging, rather than being a loss, is a time of inner growth. The monk was not focused on outward accomplishments or accolades. He had moved beyond the desire for approval. His wisdom was rooted in his ability to be present with each moment, whether it was tending to his garden or simply breathing in the morning air. His actions were a reflection of the mindfulness that deepens with age. Each gesture, no matter how small, carried meaning. As we age, we too can begin to live with this kind of mindfulness. We can move through life with less urgency, less attachment to outcomes, and more focus on the present moment. This is the heart of Buddhist practice. In fact, the Buddha's teachings on impermanence, or anicca, remind us that everything changes. Our bodies, our lives, our circumstances, all of these are temporary. And rather than clinging to what we can't control, we can learn to flow with life's changes, accepting them as part of the natural rhythm of existence. The wisdom that comes with aging allows us to release the constant striving that defines much of youth. We no longer need to prove ourselves, to compete, or to chase after things that don't bring lasting fulfillment. This is where the true power of aging lies, in the freedom it offers to let go of expectations and simply be. It's in the ability to choose peace over pride, to seek contentment in the present rather than happiness in a distant future. Aging also brings with it a deepening of compassion. As we grow older, we gain insight into the struggles and challenges that others face. We develop a more profound sense of empathy because we've lived through our own struggles, our own joys, and our own heartbreaks. This compassion isn't just for others, it's for ourselves as well. We begin to forgive ourselves for past mistakes, to accept our flaws, and to recognize that we are enough just as we are. In Buddhist thought, this process of deepening wisdom and compassion is not just about the individual. It's about our connection to others. Aging teaches us that we are all interconnected, that our lives are woven together through shared experiences of joy, suffering, love, and loss. As we age, we become more attuned to these connections and more willing to offer our wisdom, our presence, and our kindness to those around us. The wisdom of aging is not about resisting the passage of time, but about embracing it. It's about seeing each wrinkle as a story, each gray hair as a thread in the tapestry of our lives. It's about letting go of the need to be forever young and accepting that every stage of life has its own unique beauty. The gift of aging is the gift of perspective. It allows us to see the world with clearer eyes, to understand the impermanence of all things, and to live with greater compassion and wisdom. So, rather than fearing aging, let us embrace it as an opportunity to grow, not just older, but wiser. Buddhism teaches us that impermanence is one of the most profound truths. Everything changes. It is the fundamental nature of life. The Buddha once said, "Just as a snake sheds its skin, we must shed our past over and over again." This simple but profound teaching encapsulates the essence of aging, an inevitable process that mirrors the natural world's rhythm of growth, decay, and renewal. Far from something to fear, aging is an invitation to let go of old identities, worn-out stories, and false narratives that no longer serve us. It is, in fact, a chance to become more of who we truly are, an opportunity for a kind of rebirth. In the early stages of life, we are often caught up in the pursuit of external validation, chasing success, accumulating possessions, seeking approval. But as we age, we naturally begin to shed these distractions. Aging strips us of the superficial layers that once defined us and challenges us to focus on what truly matters: inner peace, wisdom, and presence. The Buddha's teachings remind us that our identities are not fixed. The person we were at 20, 30, or 40 is not the same as the person we are at 60, 70, or 80. These past versions of ourselves, shaped by experiences, desires, and societal expectations, are not who we are in our deepest essence. Aging offers us the precious opportunity to shed these old skins, to let go of our attachments to who we once thought we were. In doing so, we create space for a more authentic version of ourselves to emerge. This process of shedding is not to be feared. It is a natural, necessary part of life. The more we resist aging, the more we cling to an illusion of permanence, which only leads to frustration and suffering. But when we accept the truth of impermanence, we can meet aging with openness and grace. In Buddhist thought, the acceptance of impermanence is the key to finding peace. To illustrate this, let me share the story of a monk from a quiet Buddhist temple. This particular monk had lived a long and peaceful life, devoted to the practice of mindfulness. As he aged, he no longer gave teachings or led large gatherings. Instead, he spent his days sweeping the temple courtyard, his movements slow, deliberate, and intentional. To the young monks who observed him, it seemed like such a simple, almost mundane task. One day, a young novice approached the monk and asked, "Master, why do you spend so much time sweeping? Shouldn't you be teaching us?" The old monk smiled softly and replied, "I am teaching. Each sweep of the broom clears not just the leaves, but my thoughts as well. Each sweep is a meditation in motion. In the stillness of this simple act, I find peace." The young monk, at first confused, eventually came to understand. The older monk was not merely cleaning, he was embodying mindfulness in every action. Each movement, no matter how small, was a reminder to be present, to let go of the clutter of the mind, and to return to a state of stillness and clarity. The monk's aging body had grown slower, but in that slowness, he found something profound, a deeper connection to the present moment, a deeper sense of peace. In his simplicity, he showed that true wisdom comes not from accumulation or achievement, but from the ability to let go, to shed the distractions, and to simply be. This story serves as a reminder that aging is not about losing something, but about gaining something far more precious. As we age, we are given the opportunity to focus less on the external world and more on cultivating inner peace. In the hustle and bustle of youth, we often overlook the quiet moments that are the most profound. As we grow older, we are gifted with the time and space to reflect, to practice mindfulness, and to deepen our understanding of the impermanent nature of life. The wisdom of aging is the wisdom of stillness. It is the wisdom of being content with what is, rather than constantly striving for what could be. It is the wisdom of accepting that change is inevitable, and that true peace comes not from resisting change, but from embracing it. In Buddhist teachings, this process of shedding the old is likened to the shedding of a snake's skin. Just as the snake must shed its old skin to grow, we too must let go of the outdated versions of ourselves in order to evolve. This doesn't mean we lose our essence. Rather, we become more aligned with our true nature. As we shed the ego, the attachments, and the societal expectations, we make space for our authentic selves to emerge, free from the constraints of the past. Aging also teaches us the importance of compassion. As we grow older, we begin to understand the fragility of life. We experience firsthand the impermanence of the body, the mind, and even relationships. This understanding deepens our compassion for others who are going through similar challenges. We begin to see that all beings are interconnected in their shared experience of impermanence. And this realization inspires us to act with greater kindness and empathy. In the later stages of life, we may find that we have less to prove, less to achieve, and less to accumulate. But what we gain instead is immeasurable. The wisdom to live more fully in the present, the peace that comes from acceptance, and the compassion that arises from understanding the fleeting nature of life. Aging is not a decline, but a return to simplicity, to authenticity, and to deep inner peace. In Buddhism, we are encouraged to practice the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path as a guide for living a life free from suffering. As we age, we can apply these teachings in a deeper, more meaningful way. We can learn to accept the impermanence of our bodies and minds, to cultivate mindfulness in our daily actions, and to embrace the wisdom that comes with the passage of time. Aging, then, is not something to fear or resist. It is a natural part of life's cycle, a chance to shed the distractions, to return to stillness, and to awaken to the deeper truths of existence. Through the wisdom of aging, we are invited to cultivate a life of peace, presence, and compassion, qualities that, in the end, define the most meaningful existence. And as we grow older, we can take solace in the words of the Buddha. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. Aging offers us the perfect opportunity to practice this teaching, to live more fully in the present, and to find joy in the simple, quiet moments that bring us closer to our true selves. And do you know, I reflect often on my own journey through life, particularly the time when I was swept up in the fervor of youth. In my younger years, I was like a fast-moving river, constantly striving to reach some distant destination, always pushing forward in search of something: success, recognition, or the next accomplishment. The world seemed to move at a breakneck pace, and I believed that I had to keep up, to prove myself. I thought that in the rush, I was living, but in reality, I was merely surviving, caught in the endless cycle of doing without truly experiencing. But as the years passed, I began to notice something I had once ignored: the beauty of slowing down. At first, it was a subtle shift, like the first hint of dawn creeping over the horizon. As I grew older, I found myself drawn more and more to the quiet moments, the small, seemingly insignificant experiences that, in their simplicity, offered the greatest joy. I started to savor the warmth of a cup of tea, the way the steam curled in the air, the comforting embrace of its aroma. I would take moments to simply sit, to allow myself to breathe deeply, feeling the stillness of the present moment. In the evening, as the world quieted down, I would sit by the window and listen to the distant chirping of birds, the rustle of leaves in the wind. It was in these simple moments of stillness that I began to feel the fullness of life. This shift in perspective didn't come easily. In a society that worships speed and achievement, slowing down can feel like a betrayal of what is expected. We are taught from a young age to go after what we want, to hustle, to never stop. Yet, I've come to realize that slowing down isn't a sign of weakness or resignation. It is, in fact, a sign of wisdom. It's a recognition that the greatest treasures of life are not found in the rush of chasing after things, but in the quiet spaces between. Moments of presence, moments of peace, and moments of connection. In Buddhist teachings, we are reminded of the importance of mindfulness, living fully in the present moment without attachment or distraction. The Buddha spoke often of the need to cultivate a mind that is calm, clear, and unshaken by the noise of the world. In the Dhammapada, he teaches, "He who is awake lives in happiness, for he is not moved by the things of this world." This wisdom has become ever more meaningful to me as I've grown older. I now understand that true happiness does not lie in constantly pursuing more. It lies in the quiet contentment of being fully present with what is. This perspective has been reinforced by countless stories of great Buddhist masters whose lives were defined by simplicity, stillness, and profound awareness. One story that stands out to me is that of the revered Zen master, Hakuin. In his later years, Hakuin lived in quiet seclusion, tending to his small garden and focusing on his meditation practice. One day, a young monk came to him and asked, "Master, how can I achieve enlightenment?" Hakuin, who had lived a life full of striving and teaching, responded with one simple instruction: "Sit still and observe your mind. The more you struggle, the further you will be from the truth." The wisdom in this teaching is that in the stillness, in the moments when we are not striving, we can connect with the deepest parts of ourselves. Hakuin understood that enlightenment does not come through external achievements or restless action, but through the quiet observation of the mind. It's in this space of stillness that we come to understand the true nature of reality, and more importantly, the true nature of ourselves. I often think about how, in my youth, I was constantly searching for something to fill the emptiness I felt, something to validate my existence. But as I age, I have come to realize that there is nothing to fill, because the emptiness is not something to be avoided. It is simply a reflection of the impermanence of life, a reminder that all things, both joy and sorrow, are fleeting. In accepting this impermanence, I have learned to find peace not in external accomplishments, but in the quiet acceptance of life as it is. Buddhist wisdom teaches that attachment to the self, to our ideas of who we should be or what we should achieve, is the source of suffering. When we let go of these attachments, we allow ourselves to simply be. The practice of mindfulness, of being fully present, helps us to release the need for constant striving and instead appreciate the moment for what it is. This practice has been an invaluable guide as I have navigated the process of aging. When I look back on my life now, I realize that the moments I cherish most are not the ones where I was busy achieving or chasing success, but the ones where I was simply present. Whether it was a conversation with a loved one, a quiet walk through nature, or even just sitting alone in contemplation, these are the moments that hold the most meaning. They remind me of the Buddhist concept of sati, or mindfulness, which teaches us to be fully aware of our thoughts, actions, and surroundings without judgment. It's in this awareness that we come to appreciate the depth and richness of life. This doesn't mean that I've given up on goals or ambitions. Rather, it means that I've learned to hold them lightly. I've come to understand that success is not measured by how fast we reach a destination, but by how present we are along the way. The magic of life happens in the moments we pause to truly see, to truly experience. And in these moments, we discover that the greatest gifts are not things at all, but the simple, fleeting experiences that make up the fabric of our days. In many ways, aging has helped me to embody the teachings of the Buddha more fully. The passing years have brought a deep sense of peace that was once elusive. They have taught me to value stillness over activity, to find joy in simplicity, and to let go of the constant need to prove myself. Aging has given me the time and the space to appreciate life in its most unadorned form. And in this quiet acceptance, I have found a profound sense of fulfillment. The practice of slowing down, of truly savoring the small moments, has become one of the most meaningful aspects of my life. It is a practice rooted in the heart of Buddhist wisdom, a practice that teaches us to live fully in the present, to find peace in the stillness, and to embrace the beauty of impermanence. It is through this lens that I now see aging not as something to fear, but as an opportunity to live more deeply, more authentically, and with greater compassion for myself and others. In a world that often associates aging with decline, it can be difficult to shift our perspective and see it as a blessing. But as we look deeper into Buddhist wisdom, we begin to realize that aging is not something to fear or resist, but rather something to embrace. In fact, it offers us some of life's most profound gifts: peace, clarity, and the opportunity to deepen our wisdom. So how can we begin to see aging as a blessing? How can we cultivate a mindset that honors the natural progression of life rather than fighting it? Here are a few practical ways to approach the aging process with grace and mindfulness. 1. Slow down. Not because you have to, but because you want to. In the fast-paced world we live in, we are constantly driven by the need to accomplish more, to check things off our to-do lists, and to keep moving. But the Buddha teaches us the importance of slowing down and being present in the moment. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha says, "The mind is everything. What you think you become." If we are always rushing through life, constantly distracted by external pressures, we miss the richness of the present moment. Aging offers us a unique opportunity to slow down, not because we have to, but because we choose to. By choosing to slow down, we can begin to savor the small moments that make life meaningful. Whether it's the warmth of the sun on our face, the taste of a favorite meal, or the sound of birds singing at dawn, these small, often overlooked moments become sources of joy and peace. It is in these quiet moments that we connect with the essence of life. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh often spoke of the importance of being here now, of letting go of the past and future, and embracing the present. Aging allows us to finally appreciate the beauty of this simple act of being, without the need to constantly prove ourselves or race towards some far-off goal. 2. Practice mindfulness. Be present and let go of comparison. Buddhism emphasizes mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in the moment without judgment or distraction. Aging offers us the perfect opportunity to deepen our practice of mindfulness. As we grow older, we may notice that our bodies change, our energy levels fluctuate, and our appearance may no longer reflect the youth we once had. But rather than lamenting these changes, we can choose to embrace them with acceptance and understanding. The Buddha taught that comparison is a source of suffering. When we compare ourselves to others, or even to our former selves, we create dissatisfaction and frustration. As we age, it's essential to let go of the expectation that we should look or feel the way we did in our 20s. Instead, we can learn to appreciate the beauty in the natural process of aging. Each wrinkle, each gray hair tells a story of a life lived. we evolve not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually, growing into more complete versions of ourselves. By practicing mindfulness, we can learn to accept these changes as part of the natural flow of life, and in doing so, find peace and contentment in the present moment. Number 3, keep learning. Stay curious and open to new experiences. Aging is not the end of growth. It's a continuation of our journey of learning and evolving. In fact, one of the greatest blessings of aging is the freedom to explore new interests, try new things, and discover new passions. The Buddha himself spent his entire life in search of wisdom, always learning and expanding his understanding of the world. Whether it's painting, writing, gardening, or learning a new language, staying curious and open to new experiences can help us maintain a sense of vitality and purpose. It is in our constant pursuit of knowledge and self-discovery that we find meaning and fulfillment. As we grow older, we may have more time to devote to these pursuits, and they can become a source of joy, creativity, and personal growth. Just as the Buddhist monastic tradition encourages study and reflection throughout one's life, so too can we continue to explore the vast landscape of knowledge and wisdom as we age. Our lives are full of stories and experiences that are waiting to be shared with others, offering a rich tapestry of wisdom that can inspire and uplift those around us. 4. Forgive. The path to peace comes through letting go. Perhaps one of the greatest gifts that aging offers is the ability to forgive, both others and ourselves. The Buddha taught that to understand everything is to forgive everything. As we grow older, we gain a deeper understanding of the impermanence of life and the futility of holding on to grudges and resentments. Life is too short to carry the burden of anger, bitterness, or regret. Aging offers us the chance to release these heavy emotions and find peace. Forgiveness is not about condoning hurtful behavior or forgetting past wounds. It is about freeing ourselves from the weight of negative emotions that only serve to hold us back. By forgiving others, we release ourselves from the cycle of suffering and open the door to healing. And by forgiving ourselves, we can let go of the guilt and shame that often accompany a life filled with mistakes and regrets. The Buddha said, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." When we hold on to anger and resentment, we allow these emotions to shape our lives in negative ways. But when we let go of these attachments, we make space for peace, love, and compassion to fill our hearts. Forgiveness is not a one-time event, but a practice that we can cultivate over time. As we age, we may find it easier to forgive as we come to understand the transitory nature of life. What once seemed unforgivable may no longer hold the same weight. In this way, aging becomes a path to greater freedom, freedom from the chains of anger, regret, and attachment. By embracing these practices, we can transform aging into a beautiful process of growth, self-discovery, and inner peace. Slowing down allows us to savor the present moment. Practicing mindfulness helps us to accept the changes that come with aging without comparison or judgment. Keeping an open mind and continuing to learn keeps our lives full of meaning and purpose. And through forgiveness, we free ourselves from the burden of past wounds, allowing us to embrace the peace that comes with wisdom and acceptance. Aging is not the end of the journey. It is a continuation of the path. And as we grow older, we have the opportunity to live more deeply, more fully, and more authentically. Through these practices, we can turn aging into a blessing rather than a burden, finding joy and contentment in every stage of life. So, are you ready to break free from the chaos and discover a path of peace, wisdom, and clarity? If this video has sparked something in you, whether it's a new understanding, a deeper question, or a fresh perspective, then it's time to take action. The wisdom shared here isn't just for your eyes. It's meant to be applied, lived, and shared. Aging, wisdom, mindfulness, they're not just concepts. They're the keys to unlocking a life of meaning and peace. So if you've gained value from today's video, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, and join us on this ongoing journey of discovery. Let's keep the conversation going. Leave your thoughts, questions, or reflections in the comments below. And remember, life isn't just about moving forward. It's about understanding, embracing, and living fully in each and every moment. Thank you so much for watching the video.